Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Podpaca. I'm Joe Drake, and I'm here once again with my father, Tim Drake. How are you doing today, Dad?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Today, though, we are joined by someone, and
Who's that?
well, here's the cool thing. We're doing this over Zoom. And since we're doing it over Zoom, we have the luxuries of talking with people that aren't necessarily always in our area all the time. And today, that's the case with our next guest. He did grow up all his life pretty much in Waupaca, Wisconsin, and he graduated just a couple years back in the class of 2020 at Waupaca High School. But right after high school, he went straight into the military. He is now at Fort Drum in northern New York, and he is there almost year round now. So I would like to welcome to Podpaca Dillan Russell.
Yay, Dylan.
Yay! Now I should ask, is there a proper title I should be calling you by? Because I've known you for quite a while, Dylan. I just call you Dylan, but is there something that you would rather have me call you right now with your title in the army?
No, Dylan's fine.
What rank are you now?
So right now I'm a specialist, pay
Okay.
grade of E4, so enlisted.
Okay. Pardon my ignorance on the subject, but I don't know what that means. Is there like an E1 to E10 or?
So yes, that's the pay grade. So the higher pay grade you go, the more money you get. Usually they're associated with ranks. So like E1 would be just like a basic entry private. E2 is a private second class. E3 is a private first class, and an E4 specialist. And then once you get up from my level, you start going into like non-commissioned officers or like corporals, sergeants, sergeant first classes, and that kind of stuff.
Okay. You think you'll have the opportunity to even get above non-commissioned?
So normally you have to have that's when you start commissioning as an officer, like becoming lieutenants. And normally with that kind of entails you have to go to college, get some sort of degree, and then go through a whole nother set of training that they go through. The thing with enlisted men is we're more specialized in areas of expertises rather than officers. They're more of a general kind of a thing, so they can they're more administration rather than any specialized roles.
Okay. Okay. Are you enjoying it?
Oh, I'm loving every minute of it.
Oh, good. Well, hey, man. Yeah, we appreciate your service. Thank you.
Yes.
Do you think you'll be any word that you might be traveling worldwide at all? Or
Gosh, I hope not. It's been a pretty large subject here with my coworkers and fellow soldiers and everybody, where a lot of them join to deploy and stuff like that and have that kind of stuff. And yeah, not much talk about it happening, although we are light infantry, so that means we have to be ready to deploy anywhere in the world in 72 hours.
You had mentioned that there had been a lot of talk of being deployed around Fort Drum. Is is that mostly because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, or is it because of Biden saying that he would get involved with military action if China were to attack Taiwan, or a little bit of both?
So there's quite a bit of both. The thing about the military is they have specialized units. 10th Mountain Division specializes in mountainous warfare and cold environment warfare. We're the only alpine unit. So if anything, we'd be more sent and allocated towards conflict with Russia. Whereas you have units like in Hawaii, where they are specifically jungle warfare units, they would primarily be sent to Taiwan, especially if the Marine Corps, because that's kind of like their area of expertise is like island hopping and going between tropical warfare and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
Not a whole lot of worry about. I mean, obviously, going to war with China would be pretty big, and if China did it, the consensus is Russia would definitely join in, or one or the other. If one decides to do something a little uneasy, the other one's gonna go ahead and do whatever they want. So it's a pretty big deal for something like that to happen, especially with Congress having to completely agree on deploying the military in any other fashion besides the police action, which they would have to for something like China or Taiwan, or China to attack Taiwan, or any farther invasion from Russia into NATO territory.
I'm just curious where you're at. Is there any pretty cool little communities around there you visit?
So we're kind of like in the place of the nearest town is Evan Mills. It's a pretty small community. It's actually kind of like back home where you got a lot of open farmland and stuff like that around here, which is really nice. Not a whole lot of like city unless you go about an hour south, hour and a half south to Syracuse.
Are most of the people that you hang out with at Fort Drum, are they mostly around your age, or is there all ages at Fort Drum that are just, in your that you work with all the time?
Yeah, usually like the higher up in rank you go. Normally people join the military pretty young, closer to right out of high school. So like the older you are, normally the higher ranking you are. Although there are some exceptions. We have 28-year-olds who've been through college and decided to enlist, so they're the same rank as I am, although they aren't exactly as knowledgeable in the subject quite yet. But we all hang out and have a good time. Most of them are closer to my age.
You have any really old dudes there?
They look old and they act old, but that's just because the military likes to age people a little bit faster. Some more physical activity that we're doing isn't exactly good for knee health and stuff like that. So sometimes when they stand up, or you'll hear them walking because it sounds like they're stepping on glow sticks their entire time they're up. So no, generally I think the cutoff age is like 62 is when the military forces you to retire. But usually once you get up there, you're starting to get into like really high ranking, like 2-3 star general, even 4-star general at that age. Most people don't stay until that. They put 20 years or 40 years and they kind of call it quits at that.
Dylan, are you into sports at all?
I'll keep up with the Packers when they get into season, but aside from that, that's about it.
You did play in sports still in high school, right?
Yeah, I played soccer. Mm-hmm.
Did you do track or anything like that?
I did track for 2 years. Wasn't very good at it. I pole vaulted and did small sprints.
Like 10-yard sprints?
100 meter, 200 meter, and then 400.
I was just joking.
Well, can you talk about being a goalkeeper though? Because you were goalkeeper for the soccer team, and you went pretty far with that team.
Yeah, I really enjoyed being goalkeeper. It's just like any other role in a soccer team. It's kind of got its own little niche spot since you're kind of in the back, just waiting for things to happen. And a slow game for you is probably one of the better games for your team, because that means they're not taking shots and you're not really seeing a whole lot. You're just kind of sitting and watching like you're almost a fan at that point.
Do you watch any soccer at all? That's
Not really. I know it's kind of weird. I was never a big fan of just watching soccer. I like playing it. Even sometimes if I didn't play a whole lot of it during a game, but just being there, a part of the team was a bigger impact for me. I think a lot more fun than even sometimes playing the sport. It's a camaraderie kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, exactly. I was like that with baseball growing up.
Mhm.
It was hard to really, if you're at a game, it's fine, but it was hard to watch it on TV or something. But playing it was, I love playing. Just being in the dugout with people. I completely get that. Are soccer players, because I don't know a whole lot about soccer, but you were on teams. Are they just as superstitious as baseball players? As far
Some
as
of
like,
them,
yeah,
maybe not to like the quite stereotypical baseball player, I guess. But we all had like our lucky shin guards. Like some people would like swear by Nikes, and if you see them wear anything but Nikes, it's going to be a bad game. Or I forgot my like shin tape or something like that. We're going to lose this one or something like that. Try to keep a lot of that out of there just because we had some really, really skillful players on our team. So I think they kind of put more stock into being skillful. But there were definitely some of those times.
yeah. I mean, some of the folks I played with were very superstitious. Like when the season started, you didn't shave till the season ended, that kind of thing, or whatnot. Or always wore the same socks. Just it'd been nice if they'd have washed them once in a while, but but no, it was fun though. I know what you mean, just being with the guys or whatever. So
Other than soccer, though, before you joined the Army, you were in Scouts, and that's how I became friends with you and got to know you. Well, ever since Cub Scouts for like what, since second grade, I
I
think.
think Cubs like first or second, yeah.
Yeah. And you got to become an Eagle Scout, and that's a really big deal.
It is.
How has becoming an Eagle Scout and how has your experience in Boy Scouts helped you with your career today? And yeah, I guess since we're talking about soccer as well, you can, there's probably a ton of teamwork stuff in soccer that helped you as well.
Definitely. So the one thing I've noticed more and more about at the level that I'm at with my job is scouts help me a lot with like camping and like basic outdoor skills. We do a lot outside, just walking around. We kind of live out of our backpacks, walking around with our rifles and everything else that we need, and doing whatever we need to accomplish, like a mission or something. And we're out there until it's over. So teaching me how to like backpack, how to pack my pack, just general outdoor skills. We don't always use tents. We'll make little hooches by taking like a tarp and stringing it between trees. I think knowing like knots, I guess, helped me out a lot there, keeping myself dry and my equipment dry whenever it like just straight up pours on us, because it likes to do that quite a lot. Us being so close to the Great Lakes, it's kind of inevitable that when you're in the field, it's going to rain. And then just overall like teamwork, I think really helped. Being able to, as a goalkeeper, being able to sit back and analyze and kind of help guide your team to where they need to be. Not even that, just like knowing what is a good team member and the qualities of one. Not exactly like being the actually kind of guy, and being more of a, hey, how about we do this? I've seen that we've done this. How about like this might work better, or maybe we need to change it up because this whatever we're doing isn't working, kind of a thing. I think scouts. Another thing that really helped me out, I guess I was thinking about it the other day, was marching band. The big thing is marching and step and stuff like that. Our band teacher apparently took a lot out of military practices and stuff like that. So it was a smoother transition in basic training, going from civilian not knowing how to march, but it was kind of nice having that skill. I think was definitely appreciated.
Who was the marching band teacher?
Mr. Krishak.
Oh, he was. He did that too. Okay. Yeah, he just recently retired.
Yeah, I did. My parents were talking to me afterwards. It sounds like he had some really nice things to say about our class.
Yeah, he did.
He's done a lot. I mean, my dad was telling me about how he taught my dad how to play trumpet when he was growing up. So he's definitely been around Waupaca a long time.
Oh yeah, I always enjoyed those concerts, man. I mean, you guys, from year to year, how much you guys improved was amazing. Do you still play on occasion?
No, I don't. I haven't. I left my trumpet back home.
I know some of the music skills can help. Has that come up at all?
So aside from like marching band, staying in step, and like learning how to do facing movements like right turns and stuff like that as like a formation, I think helps. I wasn't always the best at it in band, but just being exposed to it, I guess, just helps. Like whenever you're walking around in the woods, you're always watching and listening. You're not just kind of blatantly stepping on every stick or not paying attention to like small things in nature whenever you're supposed to be out there. So like, I guess those small like noise differences and like other things kind of help. It was definitely a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Some more of that aspect of my job, running informations and stuff like that, keeping time, because we call cadences and stuff like that.
I don't even know. I mean, were you a hunter when you lived in Wisconsin?
Yes, yes. I didn't hunt very often because a lot of time was taken up between Boy Scouts and soccer. But whenever I could, I hunted and fished. Oh, gosh.
And when you hunted, I mean, was it gun or bow or both?
It was just gun. Didn't really. I did shoot bow. I had my own compound bow. Wanted to go. I just didn't have the time because that takes a lot more time and dedication to hunting.
No,
just didn't have.
I brought it up because you talked about, being aware of your surroundings when you're in the woods and not, stumbling through there like a drunken polar bear. And, and that's why I kind of thought maybe you picked up some of that from hunting as well. But
Definitely. A lot of the hunting that we did was kind of like you walk quietly to your tree when it's like pitch dark, and then you wait inside the tree stand or in the tree with your gun until light comes out, and then you just kind of sit there and watch and just kind of develop yourself in nature. I really enjoyed it more than actually pulling the trigger on some of them.
yeah, I get that. I always enjoyed tracking. That was kind of my thing. I used to hunt a very large amount. Michelle never saw me during bow season. So I'd be gone an hour. Easily I'd be in the woods an hour before daylight, and then wouldn't come home till after dark and basically eat and go to sleep. But
Yeah. I remember when I was young, my dad did the same thing. Like, because we would butcher all the meat that we used, that we harvested, and kind of like do everything ourselves. And it was kind of more of like know where your food comes from and like be proudful and how you got it, and you're helping. But same thing with my dad. When the rut hit, he'd go out bow hunting when I was like 9 or 10 and stuff, and he'd come back smelling like the acorn that he had these little acorn scent pods that he put with his clothing. It'd be at like way past dark.
I know. I don't think I ever washed my hunting clothes ever, and they just hung outside most of the time. And yeah, it's just I kind of miss those days a little bit. I really haven't hunted for quite some time, but I used to go out a lot. I was fortunate. Nobody in my family had the faintest idea of how to hunt, except for my grandfather, who unfortunately passed when I was young. But my grandfather, I mean, he taught me a little bit about hunting, but how to trap and so forth, and set snares and so forth. Yeah. Back when I was like 4 or 5 years old.
That's one thing I guess I've never gotten into, and I kind of regret, is looking into like trapping and stuff, because it always looked like cool and fun to do, and a very interesting thing to go along doing. And it wasn't the same setting as hunting. That at least the way I've seen it done, because I know a couple people who do trap, and they don't generally hunt as much. It seems a lot more like a whole nother skill. I think it'd be kind of cool to have, or at least interesting to learn.
It is interesting. But like I said, I was fortunate that one of the fathers of one of my friends who had no interest in hunting was a very, very good, very successful hunter. And it was amazing the things he taught me that I just, it never dawned on me, and I mean, he taught me how to, just be able to stare into the woods and look for like little twitches, like ears. Don't look for the whole animal, stuff like that. And he was he's a heck of a shot too. But No, we would do things like take a boat out really early, like 3 in the morning or something, and go across the lake. Just just because it would cut 4 or 5 miles off the journey,
Hmm.
stuff like that. Uh, a lot of stuff he taught me, was just invaluable. So,
100%.
so
It's my dad did the same thing. He took me out hunting, and I did go a lot out with him with bow hunting when I could, when I was at school and on the weekends and stuff. And we just kind of taught me like what to look for, like the presence, like look for presence of animals if they've been through the region, that kind of thing. And it's just like some of the things you just don't think about. There's those small, minute things, like you said, like looking for the ears instead of the deer as a whole, or stuff like that. It was pretty interesting.
yeah, it is, and it's amazing if you're setting out there as much as like I did. The other things you see, like
Hmm.
I found fox dens and took my wife out there so she could get pictures of the kits, and badger dens. Never seen a bear in the wild, but I've seen wolves and badgers and fishers and everything else.
Yeah.
But if you're out there fumbling around all over the place, you're not going to see anything. So
Yeah.
yeah, it used to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've never gotten into hunting much. I don't have that mentality. I've never wanted to. I feel like I would cry if I killed an animal, especially when I was younger. So
Yeah, it's
I
definitely a
remember
mindset.
it is. I remember the first time I saw my grandmother gut a deer, because my grandmother shot it and then had my dad come out and help her with it. So I walked out there and helped track, and they all had these propane lanterns. And they give off this kind of weird, eerie kind of a light, and they'd leave me with the last blood. So when you're tracking a deer after you shot with a bow, leave someone or a marker with the last place you've seen blood, so you can always come back and retrack from there in case you can't find it.
Yep.
So I was always the it usually fell on the youngest kid or the youngest one there. So whenever I went out, that was always me. It was always kind of creepy until we found the deer, and I didn't know what was happening. I just kind of walked out there. My dad told me to stay here until I come get you. You'd see that lantern walk off into the distance and then come back. And I was a shock seeing the first time my grandmother gutting that deer.
That's kind of cool though. But
It is.
no,
It's interesting.
no, that kind of thing never bothered me because my grandparents, uh, my grandfather was pretty old when he even got married. He was like 38. My grandmother was like 18 or something. But this was a long, long time ago in southern Indiana, so there really wasn't that many people there compared to now. But yeah, I mean, we would raise on his farm. I mean, you'd raise the farm animals, chickens, give them names, and then butcher them and eat them. That's just what you did. We just would. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I just never really, I never thought about it just like taking a life as much as I was harvesting food.
Yeah.
So I was never really a trophy hunter. I was hunting for meat. For years, Michelle and I lived off the things I hunted.
Mm-hmm.
And after I took, in bow season, because we didn't really need a lot. So, depending on my tags, you take 1, maybe 2 deer,
Mm-hmm.
and then trophy hunt the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And usually I never would even come to a draw on my bow just because it had to be something awfully damn big. And, I saw lots of little basket racks and so forth. I did see some mammoth deer, but there's a reason they were so big. They were obviously smarter than me because I never got close to them.
No, that was one thing my dad really instilled in me, was don't draw or even look down your sight at a deer unless that's one of the ones that you're willing to take. And don't go out just for the trophy hunting. Obviously, you have a big buck and a small buck, you're definitely going to want to shoot the larger of the two. But he was very avid about being respectful about the animals that we take and harvest.
Yeah.
For gun season, it was more get the largest deer, even if it's not the largest antler, because that was more for getting food on the table and stuff like that. Because we lived a lot more off of ground venison and stuff like that when I was younger, and it's also healthier too because we don't put a lot of fat with ours because it's not exactly the best of tasting. So it kind of helps limit it there. It tastes a little bit, tastes different. I'm not gonna say it's better or worse than beef. It's definitely different though.
I always liked it. I like that gamey taste though. You know, I like liver and stuff like that too. But,
Okay.
But no, as far as the chops and things went though, I mean, over the years I developed ways of marinating them and so forth, and Michelle really liked it. One of the best meals we ever had, and I had me and my buddy went out trout fishing and caught several trout that morning. And his father had just gotten back, I think, I'm not sure where he was, if he was just into Canada. Anyway, he was caribou hunting. So we had fresh trout and fresh caribou steaks.
Ooh,
I know.
that's great.
Wow.
That sounds good.
It
That
was
sounds
awesome.
really good.
It was awesome. You know, it was, yeah, we had a big gathering. It was pretty cool. So
That was always a big thing. Whenever my uncle, my dad, and my grandfather and I would go out and do walleye fishing, and we'd get our limit of walleye, or until it's dark and we can't see anymore. And we'd come back and we'd have this huge fish fry together with all of our families. And that was always fun. Fresh walleye and perch and bluegill, and whether it's ice fishing or just going out on the lake and catching whatever we can catch.
do you ever muskie hunt?
No, actually, I haven't. Been thinking about it. Just things are a little different up here in New York. I haven't exactly gotten around to a lot of that stuff quite yet.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know if you'd fish for them in Wisconsin or not, but yeah, I mean, you gotta be careful with those things. They come out of the water like a torpedo.
Oh, yeah, they're mean. They got teeth on them too.
Oh yeah, yeah. And well, northern pikes do too. When my dad first moved up here, we went out fishing and just kind of messing around with some topwater baits, and just started catching pike after pike. None of them were that sizable. They weren't keepers. But it was so funny with my dad. He'd never fished for anything like that before, so he kept trying to lip them. You know, grab him by the lip. It got to the point I had to start slapping his hand. I'm like, no, razor sharp teeth in there. Stay away from that. You know, and he just kept trying. I'm like, Dad, stop. What's wrong with you? You know, I have to go to the hospital. But
Would you say that since you're from Waupaca, central Wisconsin, did you have a edge as far as outdoor skills? Were there others that you work with that just were not as exposed to the outdoors because they're living in a big city?
Oh, 100%. We always had like a lot of people join the Army from Texas, so we got a lot of people from Texas. So being in Fort Drum, if they get stationed up here, it's kind of like a little bit of a shock once they see snow for the first time in a really large amount, and that, you know, more than 2 or 3 millimeters of snow isn't going to shut down the place. It's kind of funny. A lot of the people from down south, seeing the snow for the first time is just absolutely hilarious because they don't know what to do with it. Really, they'll sit there and play with it, and they absolutely hate it. I'm weird, I guess, because I actually enjoy the snow. It's really beautiful up here. I know you've been to Ithaca's probably been pretty close, but it's absolutely stunning when you go out to the training area and it's just like covered in snow and you're just sitting there observing rounds and mortars and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and you get a lot up there because you are close. Do you get lake effect snow at all?
Yeah, we get quite a bit.
do you have a lot this year?
I think we got quite a bit. We had a couple days where it actually did end up shutting down post because I think more of the sleet came out and froze over some of the roads, so it's kind of hard and dangerous for people to get on post. not everyone who's in Fort Drum actually lives in there. Sometimes they get housing off of the base, so they have to come in the base every morning. So sometimes, more often than not, when things get canceled, it's because they can't get on posts reliably, like the snowplows can't get to their house or something, or the roads are just too icy. More often than not is when post shuts down.
I think we had a pretty mild winter here this year. I mean, I didn't even get the snowshoes out or anything. Yeah, it just seemed pretty mild. The sun seemed never ending though, man. It's like we didn't have any sun for like a month and a half. It was just, 40 degrees in the rain. It was just right down depressing after a while.
My parents kind of alluded into that as well.
That was worse than the snow, was the lack of sunlight around the area.
Yeah, that got old. No, I'm like you, Dylan. I don't mind the snow. I really don't. And I find it, up here, well, it's probably the same where you're at too. And well, you probably noticed it here. Everybody's got a vehicle that can pretty much get through the snow.
Yeah.
So, a lot of Jeeps, a lot of 4-wheel drives, that kind of thing. You almost have to have it though.
Yeah. My mom had a Prius for the longest time, and I think it only got stuck once at the bottom of the hill, and it couldn't make it up to the top of it because it was like glazed off in ice. And most of the other vehicles without snow chains were doing the same thing. So it wasn't because of just the Prius, it was just glare ice.
Yeah. Well, I learned the hard way a few years ago. And in the wintertime, it gets a little icy out or something. I wear cleats so I can walk on it. I took a nasty fall and cracked some ribs. Yeah, quite a while ago. I mean, probably 8-9 years ago now. But the sad thing was I just bought a full cup of coffee, and it was real cold out. So I crash and burn, and I'm laying there, and I don't realize, my ribs are messed up yet. But I look over and I just see the cup of coffee on its side, and the steam rising up, and I was like, oh man. And then it was like, what's wrong with my side? So, no, I never really minded the winters that much. Ice I can live without, but the snow is fine. It's amazing here though. They get out, and I mean the roads are clean pretty quick. Yeah, if you have growing up in southern Indiana, or central Indiana, they 3 or 4 inches of snow, you could be shut down for a day or two there.
Yeah.
And people don't know how to drive in it. And Indiana University was there, so you'd have a lot of students coming in from all over the world, and like you said, never even seen snow before, and they're out trying to drive in it, and it doesn't work out very well.
Yeah. See, I've noticed that having a vehicle with like 4-wheel drive and all-wheel drive isn't exactly a necessity, but it helps significantly more. Especially, like, you can take a smaller vehicle, and like if you know how to drive in the snow, you'll be fine as long as you avoid some like more hills and stuff like that. But 4-wheel drive definitely helps out a lot more when you need it.
Yeah, I would agree. Especially, you got to get out, and there's 5-6 inches of snow still on the roads. It's nice to just pop that thing in the 4-wheel and take off and go
from there. Yeah.
This episode is presented by Northern Kitchen. Northern Kitchen is a brand new store that is in Lucky Tree's family of stores on Main Street in downtown Waupaca. This new kitchen store is on the corner in the last block on North Main Street. It looks fantastic in there. You have to see it to believe it. My mom, Michelle Drake, has been working really hard on this store. It looks great in there. There are lots of great kitchen gadgets that you cannot find anywhere else in the area. Make sure to shop at Northern Kitchen on Main Street in Waupaca. Could you maybe take us for a day at Fort Drum?
So normally in the morning I wake up around 5:50. I live in the same building I work at, and our barracks is connected to our FIST offices. So I don't really have to go very far. Sometimes during the winter, if we do physical training inside our building, I don't even have to go outside if I don't want to. So wake up at 5:50, brush my teeth, shave, get on my physical training uniform, and then head out. Usually we're doing that until about, I want to say like 8 o'clock. And then we're released to go shower, get into our our camouflage uniforms, we call them OCPs, and then go about our day doing whatever taskings we need to do that day. Usually on Mondays, we work on our vehicles to make sure that they stay up and running, like our Humvees. We don't really have a whole lot to do there because we're a light infantry unit, so there's not a whole lot of vehicles in the way of how we operate in a combat situation. So we're not really given much more than that. And then we just, any blank space that we have, if we're not doing anything, we usually come up with some sort of training for some of the newer guys, like using our radios, becoming more efficient on radios, or like the antennas, formatting of some of the sheets that we work with, knowing just overall like questions, making sure our new guys are up to speed and ready to do whatever they need to do.
Is there anything that you think would surprise the everyday person that maybe we a harsh realization or something we don't realize about being in the Army that isn't really talked about a lot?
That's a good question. I mean, that's a really good question. Not really. I mean, hear a lot of like stereotypical jokes about being in the Army, like you're owned basically by the government and stuff like that, which is to a degree true. I mean, I'm sure there are better ways of putting it. The way I see it is like I signed up for it. I'm being paid like 24/7 to do a bunch of this stuff, and a lot of people complain about like, oh, this sucks. You know, I'm doing this and this and this, and I'm like, the way I see it is more of like when things start to go kind of like bad, and you're like, oh, this sucks. Like we did a movement with my infantry guys. I'm a direct support tasking for my infantry guys, so I'm detached to a platoon of infantrymen to guide artillery and mortar fire. And we did a movement a couple weeks ago at the beginning of April, I think. It was 7 kilometers through like super thick, swampy area, and it rained as soon as we got off the vehicles to start this movement. Movement just basically consists of us tactically moving through an area with our backpacks on and our everything that we need to accomplish a mission, just pretending, you know, we're actually doing it, training. And it rained, and we have night vision capabilities, so we tend to move at night because we can use our night vision to our advantage. So we normally bed down during the day, sleep then, take care of like weapons maintenance and stuff like that, eat, that kind of thing during the day. Well, we can keep a low profile, and then we can move during the night. And when we move during the night, it was right at that like transition time where it's like gets really cold at night and then it gets really warm during the day. So you're not really sure what to do, like what to bring out for like specialized equipment as far as like clothing is. So you end up packing a lot more than you think you need because you don't know what's going to happen between like if it's going to rain or if it's going to snow or that kind of a thing. And we were moving, and swamps get kind of wet when you're walking in them, and so chaining socks is a huge thing. And it's getting down to like 28 degrees, and your uniform the condensation forms on your uniform, and then it freezes right away. A lot of people were like really complaining about that, and it did suck, but it was kind of fun at the same time almost, because a lot of people there's a huge like training operation where we do this, bed down, and then do it again the next morning, and then we do a live fire where we actually load live ammunition into our weapons, and we assault an objective with like live artillery fire, live mortar fire, and stuff like that. Just to it's more of a certification that we have to keep doing every so often. We do like 3 or 4 of them every year to prove that, like, and a combat situation that we were able to do what we need to do without committing fratricide or killing off accidentally some of our own men by like just negligence or just I guess being complacent in our job and not like doing what we should be doing during the day as far as like training wise and stuff like that. But it's definitely tough, especially with the unit that I'm attached to. It gets cold and then it gets warm and stuff like that. I think a lot of people don't realize that sometimes they think you're going to get stationed in like Texas and they don't know about some of the places that they can get stationed, like up in Fort Wainwright in Alaska or Fort Drum. They always just think that you're going to get stationed somewhere where it's just hot all day and all night. And I think that was a big thing, big shock that came to a lot of people. They forgot some of the other like alpine units that exist, and they're not exactly happy about getting sent there because of the cold or whatever it may be.
If you had your absolute choice, where would you think you'd like to be stationed?
So I actually, when I went through basic training, they gave us a dream list of like three. So pick 3 states you'd like to be stationed in, and then pick 3 countries or out of states that you'd like to be in. And I think I picked Texas because I've never been to Texas. Washington State because I've got some family out there and it's a beautiful state, and then Fort Drum because I wanted to be a part of the 10th Mountain. And I said that those were like the 3 main places I'd be most happy to go to if you had to send me. If I had my pick, those would be the 3 states, because I was a huge fan of the 10th Mountain Division. They've been the most deployed since 9/11 happened. They were like the counterterrorism unit that the military has to offer as far as that, and I kind of want to be a part of that. They also have Mountain Warfare School, which is something I wanted to attend to. I still haven't had the option to go, but we're trying to work on that. But any 3 of those states, they also let us pick like other countries. So I picked Alaska because in their systems, they counted that as out of state because it's out of the lower 48. Alaska, Japan, and then Germany, because we have bases all over the world. I think that would be cool, doing like a rotation in Germany or Japan.
One more question for you here. I want to know what's been your most eye-opening or important experience to you so far in the Army. In Fort Drum, it could be basic training, anything you want.
So it's hard to pinpoint one because I haven't been like relatively in the Army very long. I mean, as far as like I've been alive, I'm putting up my 2-year mark here at the end of June. But for me, that's 2 years is quite a long time, especially after high school.
Oh yeah.
As far as like Army wise, I haven't been around nearly enough. Some people have their underwear has a longer time in service than I do. Basic training was an eye-opening experience, I guess, because a lot of people, I think more like that Midwestern, like I was trying to help other people and they were just kind of like doing whatever it was they wanted to do. They weren't really caring who it impacted, how it impacted on certain things. Especially like the drill sergeant persona, who they're like all mean and like angry and stuff like that, and just making you do push-ups 24/7, which that part is probably closer to true than not. But I think someone put it a very good way, because drill sergeants never like talked about it this way, but most of the drill sergeants don't like volunteer to become drill sergeants. They kind of the Army says, you've been in this position quite a long time. They call it a broadening assignment. So they either become like a recruiter or an instructor or a drill sergeant. There's a couple other options in there. It's just so they can like broaden their military horizons, like learn how to like lead people, how to teach and stuff like that. And they go to a drill sergeant school, and then they become drill sergeants after once they finish it. And like they're putting their time and effort into helping you train and like learn some basic tasks and stuff like that the military needs you to know. And a lot of people, I think, disrespect them by sleeping through some of their lectures that they give, or just like being just like overall just rude and annoying to them. And kind of like they're wasting their time because they're not learning what they need to learn, and the drill sergeants getting angry and stuff like that, which I think that's a huge huge concept on why drill sergeants are looked at the way that they are. Also, at the same time, the way that they teach are very effective if you let them sit down and learn. But if you're just like goofing off and doing stupid stuff, talking when they're giving a lecture or something like that, it did kind of seem a little disrespectful. Some of the guys that were doing that, they got our entire platoon doing push-ups for 3 hours straight or something like that. But between that and when I first got to my unit in Fort Drum, we did air assault missions. We fly in Blackhawks, and we land, we hop out, do whatever we need to do. For us, we had to go into a place and observe mortar rounds because a colonel wanted to get some pictures of our mortarmen firing off in a snowbank, firing the mortars off in a snowbank. So we had to be out there and to observe their rounds. We're landing safely, not going anywhere near villages or anything like that, which is kind of hard to do if you're not trying to do it. But accidents do happen. And I didn't go out alone. My lieutenant was out there, and then sergeant was out there with me. We were working together, and we went out there. We didn't have a whole lot of time, so we just kind of sat down in a place where we could see where they were supposed to be impacting. And the first one shot, and we thought we were really far away from it. And then the round actually ended up landing 60 meters behind us on top of the hill, which was kind of crazy. I didn't expect that to happen, because I just got to the unit, and 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, we're doing this cool air assault mission flying in on Blackhawks, and it's in the middle of the winter, so you land with the Blackhawks and the rotors are all picking up the snow and stuff. And I think it was a lot of fun. I think that kind of showed me what I was supposed to be doing and stuff. It was one of the coolest things I think I've ever done. But just kind of know that what we do, that things are done a specific way. People kind of gripe and complain about oh, this is going to take forever because you have to do it by the books. But if you don't do it by the books, someone could get seriously hurt and stuff. I think that was probably one of the most biggest eye-opening sequences I've had in the military so far. I'm sure I'll have more.
What do you mean, when you say eye-opening? The amount of trouble people have following basic instructions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, basic instructions. They're when you do something in the military, there's always a technical manual or something to step by step. This is how you do it, and you're supposed to follow those steps. And I think a lot of people get complacent. They get done with their training. They're like, oh, now I can do cool guy stuff. I'm look cool doing this, and just start throwing rounds out there without looking at my pitch, my angle, or anything like that. And when you're working with mortar shells, which are meant to kill a large amount of people with one specific round, it can get kind of dangerous. And seeing complacency, I think, is why, because this round that came in right next to us, about 60 meters behind us, was not supposed to happen. It was supposed to go about another 1,000 meters in front of us. And I think just the sheer amount of negligence, if you're not being careful at what you're doing and applying yourself every time you do what you're supposed to, your job requires you to do, you're not putting 100% of you into that specific job or that specific action. It kind of has a huge amount of ramifications if things go wrong, and it can impact some people. If we were a minute behind, we could have gotten hurt to the point where I would have been out of the Army, and I would have been in the Army for 9 months, and that would have ended it. Either it being to the point where I got hurt hard or bad enough to the point where I had to get taken out, or something worse.
I'm surprised too when you said during lectures, people are being rude and talking and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like you said, not only they get punished, but everybody does.
Yeah.
I guess the hope there would be that the group would turn that around.
Mm-hmm.
Internally. But seriously, and that's rude on any level, whether it's in the military or anything. If sitting there, talking during when someone else is supposed to be there teaching you something, that's rude on any scale. So
yeah. No, I noticed it when like in basic training because I went right after high school, which it was the summer, so you're gonna obviously get a lot more people who came after high school and going straight into the military, and a lot of basic training just kind of resorted back into like a lot of that drama crap and stuff like that. That wasn't like a whole lot of fun. Like she said this, or like he said this, and this is disrespectful. And like some of them don't even know what that word even means. I think.
So you're talking about high school drama.
It just kind of dissolves straight back into high school because now you have all these 19-year-olds who think they're cool and that they're in the military and stuff.
Yeah, because there's I don't know how you and Joe felt about it. I remember I actually do, even though it was a long time ago, do remember high school. When in leaving there, all of a sudden you realized, wow, real life is considerably different than high school.
Oh, it's significantly better too.
Yeah, it is.
Because like I get some high schoolers, like it's not like college where like you kind of get stuck with people like you major with and stuff like that, where you actually have like interests where like sometimes some high schools it's kind of like the only option unless you want to drive another 45 minutes every morning to a different city and stuff like that. Like I get that, but still at the end of the day, like just being rude. And like in basic training, we get like sleep deprivation training and stuff like that. Like don't get to sleep a whole lot. You're up sometimes some of the nights doing fire guard, making sure in case the building does start on fire, you can either react to it or help get people out of it, wake those people up. Or just overall, just like lack of food sometimes. You're out there training, you're doing a lot of exercise, and you're not given like a whole lot of food to do it with. But like at the end of the day, it's still like it's not like it wasn't anything that was going to kill you or anything. Like you could have acted like significantly nicer to those people and maybe get better training out of it too. Because now they're wasting their time correctively training us, making us do push-ups because we have to learn, or some of us have to learn not to do stupid stuff like fall asleep or just talk and stuff over the drill sergeants. If they put more time and energy into training us better on whatever it was they were lecturing, things could have ended up a lot better, I think. And it's not like Full Metal Jacket where you can kind of do the soap in the sock party at the end of the night. They have cameras and stuff like that now, or at least we were told they did.
So how do you self-police then?
It's really hard. It's just kind of like I think it's more of a challenge now because it's harder. You can't really do a lot of like if the drill sergeant doesn't see it, it's okay kind of a thing. Because it's a completely different army than it was back when that was a thing, even 10 years ago. I think a lot of people in the military now that's been in that long, they're saying like it's softer, it's just different. A lot of the smarter people just say it's different because it's not the same, but like a lot of the conditions, like living conditions, work environment conditions have gotten significantly better. There's not as many, I guess, reported cases of like sexual harassment or like racism or anything right now in the ranks, which from 10 years ago is pretty big, I think. And it's a lot more trying to find a nicer way to help police friends up, like saying, hey, probably should be paying attention or something like that. Some people just think you come at them a different way than you actually are. You're trying to just look out for them, and they think that you're just trying to be bossy and be in charge of them. That's where most of the drama stems from.
Yeah, I can see that. That's so hard to correct though, but in the end, when you're miserable and things aren't going as well for you, people really do need to learn to look in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
So
that's the other thing is like basic training is more designed nowadays to give a lot of the new soldiers like a common ground. Like, okay, we all had to pass the certification, this, and this. Like, we may not like be on the same level, but we've done the same things. We have the same qualifications to be in this specific job. So like we can kind of like look at each other like he passed basic training just like I had to, kind of a thing. You're like, all right, I can kind of trust him now. We got something to like basic common thing to talk about at bare minimum on how different my basic training was than the buddy next to me.
sure.
Well, thank you, Dylan, for being on. Thank you again for your service.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks again, everybody, for listening to another episode of Podpaca. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Lucky Tree and Northern Home. Go to luckytreeopaca.com as well if you want to shop for any cool gifts. I, of course, want to thank again Dillan Russell for stopping by on the podcast. Be sure to follow Podpaca on Facebook and to follow us on Instagram for any social media updates, for any updates on new episodes or any future Podpaca updates that you would like to know about. If you want to know a sneak peek in the next episode or guests coming up. Also, make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the Podpaca YouTube channel. You can watch video versions of the podcast on there, and you can listen to audio versions of our podcast, of course, on any podcast service that you like, including Spotify. So, and thank you for listening.